Watching someone you love struggle with alcoholism can feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells. The anxiety, the frustration, and the helplessness, it all adds up, especially when you're unsure of how to help them or what to say. This journey is not just theirs, but yours too. Knowing how to support them without losing yourself in the process can make all the difference. Together, let's explore practical, compassionate strategies to guide your loved one toward recovery while also protecting your own mental well-being. Alcoholism is not an isolated issue. It affects everyone in its orbit. When someone you care about drinks excessively, you might find yourself caught in a whirlwind of emotions: anger, guilt, confusion, or even resentment. Relationships with an alcoholic can feel like a tightrope walk. Every action feels like it could either help or hurt. The reality is, alcohol abuse can erode trust, communication, and the emotional bond you share with your loved one. It's painful to watch someone you care about spiral out of control, but it's also exhausting to constantly worry about the next crisis. Psychologists have long discussed the ripple effect of addiction on families, particularly how it creates a dysfunctional dynamic that can perpetuate stress. Dr. Stephanie Brown, in her book Safe Passage, highlights how family members often develop survival roles to cope, whether that means becoming a caretaker, enabler, or even withdrawing emotionally. Understanding that these responses are common can help you recognize that you're not alone in feeling overwhelmed. And let's be honest, it's not just the emotional toll that wears you down. Financial strain, broken promises, and even the fear of physical safety can weigh heavily. It's critical to acknowledge that their drinking isn't just their problem. It impacts everyone involved, which is why taking steps to help them can be the start of healing for everyone. It's easy to second-guess yourself when you suspect someone has a drinking problem. After all, many people enjoy a drink now and then, right? But there's a fine line between casual drinking and a dependency that disrupts life. The signs may start subtly. Perhaps they're drinking alone more often or getting defensive when you bring it up. Yet, over time, patterns emerge: missed responsibilities, memory lapses, or mood swings that seem to correlate with their drinking habits. One clear red flag is when someone starts to prioritize alcohol over things that used to matter to them, like hobbies, family time, or even work. This shift can be gradual, making it easy to overlook until it becomes undeniable. Psychologically, what's happening here can be linked to what's known as the alcohol myopia effect. According to a study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, alcohol narrows one's focus to immediate gratification, making it hard for the person to consider long-term consequences. When someone is deep in this mindset, they may not even recognize how their actions are affecting their life and those around them. As someone close to them, you often see these changes first. Trust your instincts. If you notice that their drinking is becoming a problem, it's likely that they are struggling more than they let on. Early intervention can make all the difference in helping them regain control. The idea of confronting someone about their drinking might fill you with dread. And who could blame you? These conversations are tough, especially when emotions run high. You might fear that bringing it up will only push them away or spark an argument. But here's the truth: the longer you wait, the harder it gets. Starting the conversation, though intimidating, is often the first step toward helping someone recognize their need for change. To have a meaningful conversation, timing is everything. Choose a moment when they are sober, calm, and more likely to listen. Being accusatory or confrontational often leads to defensiveness, so try to express your concerns from a place of love and care. For instance, instead of saying, "You're ruining everything with your drinking," you might try, "I've noticed you're drinking more lately, and I'm worried about you." This approach shows concern without casting blame. Research suggests that people are more open to change when they feel understood and supported rather than judged. Dr. William Miller, co-author of Motivational Interviewing, advises focusing on building empathy and avoiding direct confrontation. The goal here is to open the door to conversation, not to force a sudden change. Encourage them to share their thoughts and feelings about drinking. It's a chance to understand what drives their behavior and how best to support them. Remember, you're planting a seed. They may not be ready to acknowledge a problem right away, but your words can linger, encouraging them to reflect on their behavior down the road. When it comes to talking to someone about their drinking, empathy is your best ally. It's all about framing the conversation in a way that doesn't feel like an attack. The last thing you want is for them to feel cornered or judged. That's a surefire way to shut down the dialogue before it even begins. One effective strategy is to use I statements instead of you accusations. For example, saying, "I'm really concerned about your health," can open a conversation far better than, "You're drinking too much and ruining everything." It helps them understand that your concerns come from a place of care, not criticism. And always, always listen more than you speak. Let them share their perspective. It might not change how you feel, but it will give you insight into what they're experiencing. Timing also matters. Try not to have these talks when they're already under the influence. Instead, choose a time when they're sober and likely to be more receptive. Also, be patient. This is not a one-and-done conversation. It may take several attempts for your words to sink in. Each talk is a chance to show them you're there to help, not to judge. It's easy to get caught up in frustration, especially if their drinking has led to broken promises or repeated disappointments. But here's the thing. Trying to guilt them into changing or throwing ultimatums usually backfires. People struggling with alcoholism often already feel a deep sense of shame. Adding more guilt can push them further into their drinking as a coping mechanism. Avoid labeling or diagnosing them. Statements like, "You're an alcoholic," can feel like a harsh judgment and put them on the defensive. Instead, focus on specific behaviors and their impact. Saying something like, "I've noticed you missed our plans a few times after drinking," is less likely to trigger defensiveness than outright labeling. Also, avoid bringing up the past excessively. While it's tempting to list every incident, this can overwhelm them and make the conversation feel like an attack. Remember, patience is crucial. This process takes time, and pushing too hard can damage your relationship beyond repair. Your goal is to support them in seeing their behavior for themselves, not to force them to admit they have a problem. One of the hardest parts is encouraging someone to take that first step toward getting help. You can't force anyone to change, but you can offer a supportive hand when they're ready. The best thing you can do is educate yourself about the treatment options available and share this information with them when the time feels right. When they express even a hint of wanting to change, seize that moment. Encourage them to seek help by framing it as an act of self-care rather than punishment. Saying, "You deserve to feel better, and I want to support you in finding that," is much more encouraging than, "You need to fix this now." Highlighting the positive outcomes, like improved relationships or feeling healthier, can be more motivating than focusing on the negatives. There's a psychological concept called the readiness to change model, which suggests that people go through stages before they're ready to act. According to Dr. James Prochaska's work on this model, people often cycle through stages of contemplation before committing to change. Understanding where your loved one is in the cycle can help you gauge the best approach. If they're still in the denial phase, pushing them too hard can make them dig their heels in deeper. Instead, be there to listen and support them when they're ready to take the next step. Ultimately, it's about creating a safe space for them to explore their options without feeling coerced. Remind them that seeking help is not a sign of weakness, but a courageous step toward a healthier life. One of the toughest questions to tackle is whether your loved one needs to quit drinking entirely or simply cut back. It might seem like an easy answer, just quit, right? But for someone who's been using alcohol to cope, the idea of never drinking again can feel terrifying. It's a huge, intimidating leap, and sometimes that fear keeps them from even trying to change. That's why it's important to explore both options openly. For some, cutting back might feel like a more achievable goal initially, especially if they're not ready to commit to sobriety. It's a step that can build confidence and show them that change is possible. However, if they have a severe dependency, quitting entirely may be the only safe and sustainable choice. This is often the case for those who experience physical withdrawal symptoms or have a history of failed attempts at moderation. Research in the field of addiction recovery suggests that while harm reduction, like cutting back, can work for some, those with a deep dependency often need complete abstinence to truly heal. Ultimately, the decision to quit or reduce drinking is deeply personal. The best approach is to have an open conversation with them about their goals and what feels manageable. This is where patience and understanding come into play. Encourage them to think about the benefits of cutting down or quitting, like better health, improved relationships, and financial savings. But remember, the choice has to be theirs. Pushing too hard can backfire and reinforce resistance. When it comes to treatment, the options can seem overwhelming, but that's actually a good thing. There's no one-size-fits-all solution for alcohol recovery. Treatment can range from outpatient counseling sessions to inpatient rehab programs, depending on the severity of the issue and the individual's needs. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, for instance, is a proven method that helps people identify and change thought patterns that contribute to their drinking. It can be especially effective for those who drink to cope with stress or negative emotions. Another approach that's been gaining traction is the use of medication-assisted treatment, MAT. According to the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, NIA, medications like naltrexone or acamprosate can help reduce cravings and withdrawal symptoms, making it easier for someone to stay sober. These medications aren't magic pills, but they can support recovery when used alongside therapy and lifestyle changes. Support groups like Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, or Smart Recovery offer community-based support, which can be crucial for maintaining long-term sobriety. For some, the connection with others who understand the struggle makes all the difference. Encourage your loved one to explore different options until they find what resonates with them. Recovery isn't a linear path, it's about finding what works and being open to trying different strategies. Once your loved one decides to seek help, your support becomes even more crucial. But supporting someone in recovery is a delicate balance. You want to encourage them, but you don't want to fall into the trap of enabling. It's a fine line that often leaves you feeling like you're walking on eggshells. The key here is to provide support without taking over. Remember, this is their journey. Be their cheerleader, not their manager. Celebrate their victories, no matter how small they might seem. If they manage to go a week without drinking, that's a win worth acknowledging. Positive reinforcement can go a long way in maintaining motivation. Dr. Ann Fletcher, author of Sober for Good, suggests that recovery is often more sustainable when loved ones offer consistent encouragement rather than criticism. Another important aspect is to educate yourself on what to expect during recovery. Relapses can happen, and it's important not to view them as failures. Instead, see them as part of the process, a chance to learn what triggered the slip and how to avoid it next time. Encourage your loved one to be kind to themselves during setbacks. Healing is rarely a straight line. It's filled with twists, turns, and detours. Watching a teenager struggle with alcohol can feel especially heartbreaking. Adolescents often turn to alcohol as a way to fit in, cope with pressure, or escape from their problems. The stakes feel even higher because their brains are still developing, making them more vulnerable to the long-term effects of substance abuse. As a parent or guardian, this can leave you feeling desperate, angry, and scared all at once. First and foremost, approach the situation with compassion rather than punishment. Teens are more likely to respond positively when they feel understood rather than lectured. Start by really listening to their concerns. Ask open-ended questions like, "What's going on that makes you want to drink?" This not only shows you care, but also gives you insight into the underlying issues driving their behavior. Consider seeking professional help, such as a therapist who specializes in adolescent addiction. Family therapy can also be incredibly effective, as it addresses the root causes of the behavior while strengthening family communication. And while it might feel counterintuitive, giving them some level of autonomy in the decision-making process can increase their willingness to engage in treatment. Forcing them into rehab or therapy can backfire if they're not ready to commit to the process. Remember, teens are navigating a lot of pressures. School, social dynamics, and the desire for independence can all feel overwhelming. Offering them a safe, non-judgmental space to talk about their struggles can be one of the most powerful tools in your arsenal. As much as you want to help your loved one overcome their struggles with alcohol, there's one thing you absolutely cannot afford to neglect: yourself. Supporting someone through alcoholism can be incredibly draining physically, emotionally, and mentally. The stress can seep into every corner of your life, affecting your sleep, your work, and even your relationships with others. You can't pour from an empty cup, and if you burn yourself out, you won't be able to support them effectively. So, what does it mean to prioritize your own well-being? It starts with boundaries. You have to set limits on how much you can give before it starts to impact your own mental health. It's okay to say, "I can't handle this right now." That doesn't mean you love them any less. It means you're acknowledging that your health matters too. Dr. Melody Beattie, author of Codependent No More, emphasizes the importance of detaching with love. This means caring for your loved one without becoming entangled in their behavior. It's about maintaining your own sense of self and not letting their struggles consume you. Don't underestimate the value of self-care. Whether it's a walk in nature, a yoga class, or simply reading a book, make time for activities that recharge you. Connecting with friends or joining a support group like Al-Anon can also provide much-needed emotional relief. Sometimes, just talking to others who understand what you're going through can lift a huge weight off your shoulders. Remember, it's not selfish to take care of yourself. In fact, it's the most selfless thing you can do in the long run. By staying healthy and balanced, you'll be in a better position to support your loved one when they're ready to make changes. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, don't hesitate to seek therapy for yourself. A trained counselor can provide tools and techniques to manage the stress and anxiety that come with supporting someone struggling with addiction.